Okay, good evening everybody and welcome to the COVID-19 committee meeting of the 26th of May 2020. I'd like to start on National Sorry Day, acknowledging that we meet on the lands of the
I think you might just need to click
our nation and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge that today is National Sorry Day. And as we do every day, we have the Aboriginal flag flying at the front of our administration and at Axford Park. We don't have any apologies or members on leave of absence, so I'll go to public question time and receiving of public statements.
Through you, Mayor Cole.
As you can see, we're having some technical issues. We do have a number of people in one room attending the meeting together, and I can see our IT manager, Peter Ferguson, is there trying to help deal with the issues.
Through you, Mayor Cole, we're just going to turn down one microphone.
Okay, for those who are joining us from home, the reason that we're having is that we are attempting to hold the meeting with a group of people in the committee room as a practice run to try to get us back together as a group, so we're having a few technical issues.
Would you like me to read out the questions now?
That would be wonderful, thank you.
Okay. Apologies for the delay. So we've received 2 comments from members of the public in respect to first item 7.4 on the agenda. The comments from Linda Rowley of West Perth. Her comment is, I am very appreciative of the opportunity to make this statement in support of our offer to purchase the piece of land owned by the city, which is 150 Charles Street. My husband and myself are the owners of the adjoining property, and a few months ago were invited by officers of the city to make an offer to purchase this land. Although the lot being sold measures 293 square metres, some 146 square metres is dedicated as a road and is subject to the Planning Control Area 125. The Planning Control Area land will eventually be subdivided, leaving a residual lot of 147 square metres. The city's officers have advised us that all setbacks for any development have to commence from the boundary of the Planning Control Area. We did therefore seek and obtained planning advice from respected planners, the Rowe Group. Mr. Habrigal, the manager partner of that firm, who has nearly 30 years' experience, provided his advice, which is annexed to the valuation report. The Rowe Group is located in Newcastle Street on the corner of Fitzgerald Street and it has substantial local knowledge. The Rowe Group is one of WA's premier planning firms. The manager lists the constraints.
ABC, I might say this is verging on promotional for Rowe Group. That was just a joke, but it was just because I wanted to correct it. It's Mr. Hadra Gabriel from the Rowe Group.
Abra Gabriel lists the constraints on the site, including the proximity of the lounge and bathroom windows on the common boundary with number 81, and calculates the developable footprint to be 53 square metres. That's on page 7 of his report, respecting the city's policies, R codes and the town planning scheme. The 53 square metre is an awkward triangular shape, which much of the land in the apex not usable for building. Any upper stories would be still further set back. He concludes that the planning control area cuts off access to the right-of-way and that Cowell Street frontage is too narrow at 5.8 metres to allow any car parking on the land, as the corner is the western boundary point. Any house built on the 53 square metre footprint would have to be architecturally designed and custom built at considerable cost immediately next to a busy and noisy main road. It would not have on-site parking, and Cowell Street is congested for much of the day already. Question marks hang over the economic feasibility of such a project. Ms. Lee Ver is also a very experienced professional with over 30 years' experience as a valuer. She has written a careful and detailed report concluding the market value at $54,000 due to significant constraints. She has also provided a value to the adjoining owner valuation of $76,000, deleting the side setback. In fairness, we have offered that valuation even though our advice is that to the rest of the market, the value is $54,000. I have not had the benefit of seeing the city's valuation advice and do not know if its valuer has had the benefit of detailed planning advice. It is very understandable that the city's officers should recommend refusal of our offer given the apparent substantial gap between the two valuations. However, considerable thought and effort by objective, experienced and fair-minded professionals has been put into the report supporting our offer, and I am confident that the city will similarly give them a fair and careful consideration in dealing with our offer. The second comment comes from Graham Hay of West Perth. This is in respect to item 7.3, which is financial assistance recommendations for city tenants. Graham Hay has said, any support from the City of Vincent during these very trying times is greatly appreciated by all artists. We strongly support the recommendations from the City of Vincent administration staff as conveyed to us by email 2 days ago. And that concludes the comments we've received from the public at this meeting.
Thank you very much, Manager. And I'd like to say thank you to Linda Rowley and also to Graham Hay for submitting their comments. And we will address some of those issues and discuss some of those issues raised by Linda Rowley when we come to that item. The next item is 3B, response to previous public questions taken on notice. There are nil. So we will go to declarations of interest. So I'll go to the CEO, please.
Declaration of interest from Councillor Castle related to item 7.3.
Sorry, CEO, I cannot hear. You appear to be muted. Is that the same for everyone? Can you hear the CEO? Can't hear you, the CEO. Would you like me to read out the declarations of interest? Yes? Okay, all right. So I have them in front of me, which is very handy. So we have a declaration of Councillor Castle that she has disclosed an impartiality interest in item 7.3, financial assistance recommendations. The extent of her interest is that she is friends with the President of Gymnastics WA, and that is the only declaration I have, unless there are any further coming to me right this moment. No, thank you very much, Councillor Castle. Next, item 5, applications for leave of absence. Any applications to come forward? There appear to be none, thank you. And item 6, confirmation of minutes. This is for the minutes of the committee meeting last Tuesday, 19th of May 2020. Could I please have a mover and seconder to adopt the minutes? Moved Councillor Castle, seconded Councillor Gontaszewski. All those in favour? The minutes are carried. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to business arising for this evening. So we start always where we begin is with our COVID-19 weekly update, item 7.1. I'll just ask for a mover and seconder to this item. Moved Councillor Gontaszewski, seconded Councillor Castle. Councillor Gontaszewski, questions or comments?
I did have one question. Let me just go to, it was related to a new action, 2.4.1, facilitate enhancements to Loftus Centre, including Wi-Fi. And just wondering if I could get some information on that.
Wi-Fi at Loftus Centre. It's already done. It's operational. Can you try?
Through you, Mayor Cole, we can advise that that is currently working at the Loftus Community Centre.
Sorry, I guess my question was, this was a new action that was added to our the implementation plan related to, I guess, our COVID relief and recovery project. So this was a new action this week. It's already been completed, but I guess I just was wondering why that had been identified as a action within this relief and recovery implementation plan. Sorry, from your comments there, Manager, it appears that it was the community centre rather than the recreation centre that was having these works done. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It was the Loftus Community Centre.
Okay, and how do they relate to the program of works required for COVID relief and recovery as opposed to just general council operations?
Go beyond a head shake. Thank you, Manager of Built Environment and Wellbeing. We'll go to you.
I actually touched base with the manager of the community centre today. We didn't talk about Wi-Fi, but I presume that there are some challenges around providing a direct face-to-face service to all of our seniors groups. So we're very fortunate that that has started this week, but now that we've got that facility within that community centre and within the COVID environment that we have, where some people, particularly the elderly, are hesitant to leave their homes and come and actively participate person to person, it means that the community centre can examine other options for providing that service delivery.
Thank you very much, Manager. That clarifies the situation for me. My next question just related to I'm trying to find the action. It was related to the return to work for staff that work in the administration building that are currently at home. Just if we could get some commentary, perhaps from the CEO or relevant staff around what the return to work plan is for staff, whether this is going to be staged or whether we're going to have a date that is being worked towards. That would be very useful.
Through you, Mayor Cole, I can perhaps answer that question. So we're currently in the process of working through team by team a progressive return back to the office. So we have a vast majority of our administrative teams at the moment are off-site, working from home. We are expecting that as of next week we will start to see the first people coming back to the office. We're currently working on entry and exit points into the building to make sure that we've got good traffic flow. We've done some work already on office layout to ensure that people can actually, that workspaces are adequately spaced out. And we're currently installing cleaning stations as well. So I would expect that we will start to see a return to the office sort of over the next, say, 2 to 4 weeks as we work through that team by team.
Excellent. And again, I think, it is amazing how much seems to get turned around in a week. I did note, I can't find it just to hand, but I did note that it appeared from between the 18th of May and when this update was prepared on the 21st of May that there'd been 100 businesses that had been assisted with their COVID planning. That number seemed to jump out at me. So big congratulations for that work effort to assist our businesses in being able to resume their service in a safe manner. I didn't have any other questions in relation to this update. Just did note that there was that there has been a number of recent announcements in terms of funding opportunities that may be relevant to local government, and don't know whether that's worth getting any commentary on what the city's plans are in relation to both WA and federal government announcements in terms of possible funding.
I'm not sure whether we're receiving from the committee room at the moment, but it is worth noting in response to that we have received $270,000 from the federal government under the Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Program, which is something council will need to consider where best to allocate that funding through the budget for 2021. We are also still writing a letter to the Deputy Prime Minister to raise the opportunities that are available at Beatty Park Leisure Centre if any further funds were to come forward from the federal government. I might just go to administration now for any further comment on this question.
Through you, Mayor Cole, I think it's fair to say that we're currently working through those decisions, as you say, as part of the budget setting process. Some of those grants, the information is still sort of flowing through at the moment. And as it comes to hand and as we understand what the requirements are, we'll certainly be trying to maximise those opportunities for the City of Vincent.
Councillor Gontaszewski, does that satisfy your question at this point, or does it have any further questions?
No, no further questions. I think obviously some of these announcements are very current, so I'm presuming there's a fair bit of thinking going on in the background prior to the preparation of submissions in this regard. So I look forward to some further updates as we go forward.
Thank you, Councillor Gontaszewski. Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor Cole. Most of my questions are already asked by Councillor Gontaszewski, but I just wondered if we could get an update on how the week has fared in Leederville Village Square. So that was a bit of a test ground for us in terms of opening up the road space for businesses to use. I've seen lots of pictures of happy diners and wonderful entertainment in that area, but I'm just wondering from administration's point of view, how's that gone in terms of managing the COVID requirements and getting as many businesses open as possible?
Yes, through Mayor Cole. I think your summary, Alex, is probably spot on. It's there's been some great things happening in the square. It's provided some extra space for the businesses to socially distance their patrons. And the weather was beautiful last week during the day, so it was taken advantage of by a number of businesses, and the city has worked very closely with those businesses, and I think it's been really successful. Obviously, it's we've only just started this, so the weather this week is going to make it very difficult for the space to be used. So I think this week we'll see something different happening again. But it certainly set us off to a great start and really set an example for how those kinds of public spaces can be used last week. And I think overall it was a huge success. And we had a lot of positive feedback from surrounding residents, from businesses, and from people outside of the City of Vincent as well, asking us how have we done what we've done and whether they can do the same thing. So I think that's exciting.
Thank you. And I mean, obviously the weather is going to be more of a challenge this week and in the coming months. But notwithstanding that, are we able to progress looking at other areas that this can happen in other town centres, or are we still in a wait and see phase to really see how this works in Leederville?
Yeah, through Mayor Cole, we have, to be honest, we've been investigating that question for a number of weeks now already. So before we even made the decision to close Leederville Village Square, we had a look at any other spaces in the city that would qualify for this as well, because Leederville Village Square, wasn't the automatic choice. We first had a look and reviewed all of the other spaces that we had that this could apply to. So we have already started that work. Leederville Village Square is unique because it is fronted by 11 food businesses. So it creates an opportunity that doesn't exist anywhere else in the city. What we did decide to do as part of this phase two of restrictions being unwound was to open up the opportunity for parklets, for parking bays to be used by adjoining businesses. And that is something that we're working with about a dozen businesses at the moment on opening up. And that's something we'll continue to push so that as part of phase two, they have adequate space to provide 4 square metres per patron and maximise their numbers, because I think it's hopefully a certainty that as part of phase 3, the maximum number of 20 will increase, so they will be able to, they'll need more space in order to maximise their patron numbers. But we have already started reviewing again all of the opportunities to use broader public spaces for dining, and it will really come down to the detail of the order that is issued as part of phase 3, and whether food businesses are only permitted to use adjoining, road reserves and things like that, or whether they can start expanding out into spaces that are nearby but not adjoining, or whether the local government can support them through that process so that there can be, seating in public parks and seating in public areas that are away from businesses, and that businesses don't need to clean regularly, that the city can simply support through social distancing observations. So I'm sorry, that's a complicated, long-winded answer, but it's unfortunately a complicated issue.
Thank you. No, I understand that, and it's good to hear that there's a number of different options, because obviously each of our town centres will have different opportunities, and it's good to explore ways we can help in all those areas. So that's all I have on this item. Thank you to everyone who's turned around everything so quickly in this week, and we'll wait to see what the next week brings.
Yes, definitely, Councillor Castle. Just to add to Director John Corbellini's comments, I did go to the Leadville Village grounds Saturday, and my observation was that there was quite a bit of foot traffic happening up and down Oxford Street, so local residents walking to and from Leadville, like myself and the family, and that when we got down to the square, I think that's definitely had created an atmosphere in Leadville that otherwise wouldn't have existed, and a sort of feeling of, really inviting people in. It's amazing that you see simple things like chalking on the road does really attract children. There was a professional artist doing it, so the artwork was really quite beautiful. Piano on a trailer being played by both professionals and children who were learning how to play piano. They did have hand sanitizer, of course. And then we also had a Disney band playing Disney theme songs for the kids as well. So there are a lot of people sitting in the allocated areas that has been set up by our team, the businesses taking care of those chairs and tables, and there was a space for people to stand and watch the band and interact with that entertainment as well. So I think that was a really fantastic feeling in Leadville, and there's lots of positivity around the square, people talking to me about, how it made them feel that things were open and that they're feeling invited back in, and it gave them a sense of sort of hope and feeling of, things are feeling good. So that was really positive. There has been some discussion with some local businesses that, may wish to look at it being, just weekends or Wednesday to Sunday, etc. And there has been some internal discussion about what works best, particularly when you've got rainy weather and cyclones coming through. So I think this is really a trial phase where we're actually just trying to say it's closed, or it's, depending on your view, I see it as open. It's open to people, and seeing how that works and how the businesses respond to it. And it is a bit of a tricky one at the moment, because businesses are limited to 20. They can't then have an additional 20 in the public space. So they're then choosing whether to have their business running from within their business or bringing it out onto the street. I think it was really lovely to see on Saturday evening a lot of businesses had opted to come out on the street because that entertainment was there, and that feeling of people in the square was working well. So it's a thumbs up from me, and I think that it would probably be important for us to start planning what happens in phase 3, because at the moment we've negotiated with PTA to redirect the bus for a month, And I think we need to now start thinking about phase 3 and always be sort of front-footing that, talking to the businesses about their feedback, what they think. And I know that some of the local artists who've been going down there, and I think they've just been doing that either for free or for a meal from one of the local businesses. I think that there might be an arts grant that's come forward as well, so that they're sort of seeking an opportunity for that to potentially continue if the square continues to be closed or regularly closed or open, as I was saying before. I also just wanted to say thank you for the communications action, the new attachment too. I think that's really useful, and that's good to see that happen. And I did have a few questions, and I think that they are all for the Director of Community and Business, so I might just run through them. I was just wanting to check with Beatty Park Leisure Centre how that's going, and I know there's been talk about members versus people who have multi-user passes, etc. My understanding was that members would get preference, but where there was capacity, others could come in. But I do realise we have a membership base of 35,000, so I was just wondering, is that right, or am I overstating that? Is it?
No, I think it's not that many. But
I think I've just added the zeros at 3,500.
Perhaps. Yeah, that sounds a bit more like that.
Apologies.
Yeah.
3,500 members, and whether they're filling up the capacity. Also just wondered if you have an update on how many arts relief applications were received, how we're going with halls, whether they're getting rebooked again, whether people are coming back. And it did mention, interestingly, in the communications plan that Cardinals is the last of the winter sporting clubs to resume training. So I just wanted to ask about the Cardinals and what their plans are. And then the last one was about the OAG performance audit on IT not being deferred. I don't know if that's going to be a problem. I thought maybe this is the optimal time to come in and see how our IT is performing, because it's been quite spectacular and has surpassed. I mean, obviously we've had some technical issues this evening, but overall, I think the IT solutions have surpassed what we thought we were able to do with some of our antiquated systems. So yeah.
Perhaps, do you want to maybe run through those questions one at a time for me?
Okay. So Beatty Park access, members only versus taking up the full capacity. Can we invite others in? That was the first question.
Yeah, look, I understand there's been a little bit of anxiety around that. So we have opened it up to members initially. We did that strategically because we are going through a trial of our safety systems and processes, and we also need to have traceability from a COVID-19 perspective. So with our members, we already have their details, and we can obviously get in touch with them fairly quickly. We are at full capacity, but we're expecting to only be in this phase for a very short period of time. So we are really, I see this as being a very short phase where we are testing our approach, getting us back on track, and that we will definitely be opening it up to the rest of the community as soon as we possibly can.
Thank you, Director. I think that was the key thing for me, that if we are at full capacity and it's been taken up by our members, then that's fine. I think that was always the understanding that members would have that first preference in this very short period. So if they're filling the capacity, that's answered my question. The next one was just about how many arts relief applications we've received.
Yeah, so the submissions closed late yesterday, close of business yesterday. We've had 50 grant applications, and we're really thrilled by the quality and also diversity of the grants that have come through. So the Arts Relief Working Group is currently going through those as a matter of urgency, and we'll be meeting on Friday to go through our first round of discussions in terms of making some decisions, hopefully fairly soon.
Great, that sounds very exciting. The question was around how our halls are looking in terms of bookings and whether we're seeing people returning to regular sessions, etc.
Yeah, so this has been a little bit slower off the uptake. When we have individuals come in to use the halls, we're asking them to prepare a COVID-safe plan for their organisations. And we're also ensuring that the sites themselves have got cleaning stations and so on. So those requests are coming through at a fairly steady pace, and but it probably there's still a little bit of capacity there.
Okay, so but we have got classes coming back into our halls already that are operating.
Correct.
All right, that's great. So the next one was about the Cardinals. It mentioned in the communications attachment that all winter sports bar the Cardinals have resumed winter training. Just checking whether there are any issues at their training grounds or whether the city's given them a green card to start. Are there any issues happening there?
There was an issue with, in terms of the Charles Verriard that did inhibit a little bit of their practice, I believe. And I'm just wondering, David, the CEO, do you you might know the latest on this? I'm just not remembering it at the moment. Yeah, perhaps not. So I do recall seeing an email that talked about the fact that there was some constraints on the site. There was a bit of maintenance being done. But I do recall that they were on track to get back to practice. So there was a bit of a delay there.
Okay, so I think that just when we sort of put out public statements at the beginning of last week, we were talking about where we have issues, we would seek to accommodate elsewhere. We're still sort of seeking, like, where there are any maintenance works, etc., we're still offering alternatives or using different parts of the reserve.
Yeah, correct. So that was my understanding of the last communication I had, was that they had actually found a different part of that site where the team could practice. Excuse me, team, if I've got it incorrect, but that's my last impression on that one.
Okay, so it sounds like they're getting back to training pretty soon then. Yeah, okay. And then the last one was just on the OAG performance audit. I know that we had talked about seeking a deferral. The OAG has seemed to indicate that that's not going to happen. Is that a main issue for us, or are we okay to just go ahead with that? It sounds like we have. Yeah. Are there any significant implications?
So I both wrote to the OAG and also spoke to them about the opportunity to defer the IT audit. They came back to me and said that they were reluctant to do that because these days the IT systems are key controls in the financial audit, and the two really sit closely together. So what they have reassured me is that the scope of the audit has been pared back, and that the timing of the audit, we've actually delayed the start of that by a few weeks to allow the IT team additional time to prepare. And they have assured me that they're going to be conscious of the fact that we have a lot of people who are working remotely, and that they will be, I suppose, sensitive to the amount of time they take up. But also they have said that doing the audit at this point in time could actually assist us to identify if we have any critical IT risks, given the fact that we mobilised our remote environment very quickly. They said there's potential for us to use this as a bit of a continuous improvement process, which I thought had some merit to it as well.
Okay, thank you, Director. It's appreciated. That was all from me on this item. So unless that's prompted any further questions, the CEO wishes to say something, but you're still on mute, CEO.
Through you, Mayor Cole, I'm trying to use the microphone.
Yeah, it's actually working.
Okay. I've relocated myself. Just to confirm that the Cardinals Football Club has received its booking confirmation for Charles Verriard to commence this week, and there's only one section of Charles Verriard that's not available.
Recommencing training this week for the Cardinals. Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right, fantastic. Unless there's any further questions, I'll put the item. All those in favour? The item is carried. The next item is a budget update, item 7.2. Just noting that this is a verbal update, but I do think that we should still have a motion where we note the 2020-2021 budget development update, just so that we actually record a resolution for this item. So if I could ask for a mover and seconder, and then I will go to the director. Moved Councillor Castle, seconded Councillor Gontaszewski, and I'll go to the Director of Community and Business for a budget development update for 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Cole. So what I would be attempting to do is each week to provide an update to the COVID committee and also the City of Vincent community on our budget setting process. At the moment, as you can appreciate, we are trying to set a budget in a very volatile time. And so our approach is that we've taken a very conservative approach and a fairly pessimistic outlook in terms of our forward estimates. We're hoping that if we take a conservative and pessimistic approach, then if we do find that, for example, some of our revenue streams, perhaps through Beatty Park, get up and running sooner than we'd expected, then that's an opportunity for us to then use that additional revenue to replenish our cash reserves. We will be expecting over this new financial year to be doing quarterly budget reviews so that we can maintain visibility of that. So at the moment, we're seeking to maintain our services to the community, use the special purpose cash reserves to fund community grants. We have built into our budget hypothesis financial hardship provisions. We are seeking to maintain our permanent employment of staff as we have been requested by the state government. And we are also looking wherever we can to reduce discretionary expenditure and prioritise our capital projects. So at the moment, our revenue forecast for the new financial year is a reduction year on year of about $9.8 million. That's made up of a number of different things. So it comprises a reduction in utilisation of Beatty Park, a reduction in parking revenue, reflecting the fact that some of our entertainment sectors are not as well used as they might be. It reflects the ministerial order that we received about changing and setting interest rate changes within the local government sector. And also we're applying the mandatory code of conduct on commercial leases. So where we have commercial leases in place, we are waiving and deferring lease payments according to those principles. And finally, no increase to fees and charges. So at this point in time, the revenue forecast is not looking great. The management team are going through the process of looking at how we can establish the budget for the new financial year, what cost savings we can deploy, and I hope that I'll be able to give yourselves, the committee, and also the community a deeper update next week.
Thank you very much, Director. I'll just go to the mover. Is that Councillor Castle? Did you move this item? Would you like to ask any questions?
Through you, Michael. No, I appreciate the opportunity to have these regular updates. As the Director has said, these are very unusual circumstances to try and land on a budget position for this year. So I think that these updates will be an important basis for our budget process in the coming year, and I think it's important to be communicating these things to our community early on. I look forward to future updates and, as the situation changes as well.
Thank you very much, Councillor Castle. Councillor Gontaszewski, did you have any questions, comments? Okay. Thank you very much, Director. I also appreciate the update, and I think it's a good thing that we do these regular updates. We had thought that we'd be in a position to adopt a rate setting statement potentially in a special council meeting tonight, but we realised that with such a situation that's in flux, that we really have got a lot more work to do, and we need to tackle things like the GRB evaluations and really be very clear about, issues that you've just outlined around significant revenue losses. I guess from a council perspective, and I know the city's on board with this, would still be wanting to honour our strategic community plan priorities as much as possible in the constrained budget spending year. We have that as our guiding document, and that's an important side even in a austere budget setting situation. So that's something that I think council will certainly be looking for, still reflect as much of our community priorities as possible, and just look forward to having these continued discussions as we go through the budget development in what is quite a unique and complex and very different set of circumstances to what we're expecting. And again, I do want to acknowledge the work of the finance team, because I think that we've had to do an awful lot of work to land on a very tiny deficit for 1920, some 6,600, where we had already thought that that budget we were tracking quite well, and that we were set well in that direction, and that now they're having to fundamentally restart the whole process for 2021 as well. So I do appreciate that this is a significant body of work, and that it does take time as we work through these complexities, and I think that this idea in the meantime of having regular updates to keep our community informed is very positive. All right, I'll put the motion to note the budget update. All those in favour? Declare that carried. Thank you. We're now at item 7.3, which is financial assistance recommendations for city tenants, Gymnastics Western Australia Inc., Kids Galore Proprietary Limited, and Artists at Halverson Hall. Can I call for a mover and seconder, please? Move Councillor Gontaszewski, seconded Councillor Castle. Councillor Gontaszewski, any questions or comments? Just so you know, you're still on mute. I'm not sure if you're aware.
My apologies. I just wanted to confirm, I don't think I had any questions on this item, but I just need to confirm. No, I mean, this seemed to me to be in line with the way that we had been calculating our deferral and waivers previous meetings, and I note the comments from the public in relation to the support of the artist studio. I'm happy to support this item.
Thank you, Councillor Gontaszewski. Councillor Castle, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm also happy to support, as Councillor Gontaszewski stated. We've really, over the last few weeks, we've set our approach to these situations, and this is obviously in line with that, those calculations that we've been conducting. I noticed in the report there's a note that the code is expected to be completed and adopted by the end of May. So I suppose we're anticipating that no surprises there, but I guess we'll revisit these items as they will no doubt keep coming in case there's any changes to what's expected in that code. But yes, happy to support these three organisations for this relief.
Thank you, Councillor Castle. Director of Community and Business, were you indicating that you wish to speak?
Just very quickly to respond to that, we are doing the assessments quarter by quarter, so that we can actually, if we do need to modify it, although I doubt that we'll need to, but for example, if a group that we're dealing with, their financial situation changes, we can reevaluate it at any time. If there is a surprise with the mandatory code of conduct, we can take that into consideration. So we are breaking it into 3-month decision-making processes at the moment.
Thank you, Director. I did just have one question. Obviously, these have become a regular feature of our COVID committee meetings, as we know that a lot of our tenants face these very similar difficult issues. Where we're dealing with community groups or incorporated groups, and they do experience incapacity to pay deferred leasing fees, is this something, I know that the city will need to look at that ourselves, but I'm also just wondering, in terms of grants, is this the sort of assistance that Lottery West is offering, or are they not wanting to provide funds for leasing payments?
That's a really good question, Mayor Cole. I'd like to take that one on notice and maybe explore that. I'm not sure of the exact answer to that one.
Okay, that'd be great to get that information. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Cole, I might be able to offer a little insight, having just written a Lottery West grant application through my employment. One of the streams that is being offered is for resilient community and sporting organisations, and they're fairly broad criteria. So there are some streams around event cancellation, but also a more general stream that allows, it's really just for these organisations to continue operating. So I'd be interested if there's any specific information about leasing payments, but my reading was it's fairly broad.
Thank you, Councillor Castle. That sounds quite hopeful. I do like a broad grant process when you're dealing with situations like this, because often it is these payments that make organisations unsustainable during these times. So that's very helpful. Thank you. So unless there are any further comments or questions, I'll put the item. Okay, all those in favour? That's carried. Thank you very much. That brings us to item 7.4, which is sale of 150 Charles Street, West Perth, and 202 Vincent Street, North Perth, timing and process. Can I have a call for a mover and seconder to this item, please? Moved Councillor Gontaszewski, seconded Councillor Castle. Councillor Gontaszewski.
I know there are confidential attachments to this item, and I have some questions in relation to those. I'm just wondering what the process is in terms of moving behind closed doors.
Mayor Cole, that would be the normal process. That would just mean the members of the public, can you hear me okay? The members of public would be removed from the meeting.
Can I just ask a procedural question before we go behind closed doors, because I also have questions on the attachments. There's a lot of information that's in the public realm around the alternate valuation through this is Ms. Linda Rowley, who has put her question in through public question time this evening, and there's also detailed in the motion. Is the reason that the documents are confidential, is it because of the level of detail? Is it because we're going through a sale process? Just, in terms of given that there's quite a lot of information publicly available, what differentiates that information from the information in the confidential attachments?
Nicole, so the valuation report from Seville's, that we believe that's commercially sensitive for them, so they've made comparisons to other properties, and it's their recommendation on the values. And similarly for the market appraisals, that's also the real estate agents' professional advice on what the valuations are. So those two, we believe they're commercial for that reason. And then for the row group and the supporting documents for the offer we've received, also that's commercial. So their findings on why it's what the value is. So we believe that's commercial for that reason. But I do understand that obviously the price, that's in the public domain already, and there's some reference to the setbacks and row groups reasoning in the comment that was provided by Linda Rowley, but the actual report, our belief that's commercially sensitive for row group and the valuer as well.
Okay, I just wanted to check that before going behind closed doors, so to speak, in a virtual way. Councillor Gontaszewski, would you like to move a motion at this point?
Yes, as my questions do relate to the commercial and confidence information, I'd like to move that we move behind closed doors.
Okay, Councillor Castle seconding that motion, so we will take a break briefly, but we will be returning to the meeting shortly. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So we are dealing with item 7.4, sale of Charles 150 Charles Street and 202 Vincent Street, timing and process. And we've just dealt with some questions around the confidential attachments. So this item was moved by Councillor Gontaszewski and seconded by Councillor Castle. So I'll go back to the mover.
Thank you, Mayor Cole. Look, I appreciate the comments submitted by Ms. Rowley in terms of the process for and the negotiation for the sale of the Charles Street property. I'm satisfied at this point that with the recommendation that has been put forward, and note that there is opportunities for both Ms. Rowley and the broader public to engage with the city going forward in terms of these lots, that no one is precluded from taking part in this subsequent public process, and that and I note that any offers and submissions received through this process will be presented for consideration and approval. I've just noticed that, may I just confirm that at the end of this process, will this come to a full council meeting in terms of reporting, or will this come back via the COVID-19 subcommittee?
Through you, Mayor Cole, the proposal was that it would go to a full council meeting.
Yep, satisfied with that. No, so thank you. I'm supportive of this item. Thank you.
We'll go to Councillor Castle.
Thank you. Yes, I'm also supportive. Councillor Gontaszewski's covered everything. I think we've resolved some of the questions that were in place regarding the different valuations, but I'm satisfied that they have taken the relevant items into account and the factors into account, and happy to proceed.
Thank you, Councillor. Just during the confidential session, we did receive some planning advice from our Director of Development, Strategy and Development. I'll just very quickly run through it unless you want to, Director. I've written the notes, so I can probably, perhaps you just let me know if I've missed anything. So in terms of, we've had two valuations, one from Ms. Rowley, and that was dealt with during public question time, and there were some questions or issues around planning and development potential on the site. So our Director has advised that it is actually a transit corridor zone, that it can be developed to up to 4 stories and could be considered for either single residence or multi-dwellings. There is an access issue which affects the street tree, and because of the zoning, it would be subject to 1 metre setbacks from both street frontages. Is there anything else, Director, that you wanted to add to that?
No, I think we can probably provide some comprehensive advice on the planning deemed to apply standards through to Ms. Rowley. I think that would help in response to the advice that she's received.
Thank you. I'm sure that would be very much appreciated. And just based on the questions asked during the confidential discussion on the attachments, I am satisfied that the city's valuation has taken into consideration the planning control area. So on that basis, I'm happy to support this process and timing going forward. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Declare that carried. So that takes us to our final item of business arising for the evening, which is a 7.5 cash in lieu for parking expenditure plan update. Councillor moved, Councillor Gontaszewski, seconded Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor Cole. I note the update provided. I just had a couple of questions in relation to the further development of the cash in lieu expenditure plan. Just in terms of the timelines for the further detail being added to the plan, and whether that is going to be something that can be accommodated prior to our or through our budget development discussions. Obviously, as the city has capital works capacity, I think that it's something that we need to be considering through that process. And just the level of detail that's expected to be provided in this plan, like whether the plan is going to list individual projects or whether it's going to be more of a high-level direction setter. And whether there are any other criteria aside from this existing city strategic documents and policy requirements that may be set to support the identification and prioritisation of projects in terms of, I guess I'm just thinking in terms of the capacity to be delivered very quickly and the capacity to both support the aims of the cash in lieu funds, but also potential for, I guess, business resilience and recovery through the COVID-19 pandemic. And then also whether local businesses and town teams would be consulted to identify possible projects that may fit within the scope of the expenditure plan.
Yes, through Mayor Cole. In relation to the individual, in relation to the question about what the outcome of this would be, so what the output is, it will be a list of individual projects along with, and I think this will have to happen in stages because from the look of it, the $2+ million or the $2 million worth of reserve funds, it's unlikely we will put together an adequate set of projects that we could implement immediately this coming financial year. So there will be a list of projects. We're hoping to develop a list of projects that we can feed into the budget process for next financial year, as well as to set out the remaining reserve funds that would be considered for use in future years, but potentially as part of implementation of the integrated transport plan or through other initiatives. So that's the output that's proposed, and that's the timing as well. We're hoping to have this work completed in the coming weeks so that we can put together that list of projects for next financial year for Council to consider as part of the budget process. The criteria, we have developed that up, and it largely relates to the DAs, the development applications or the development approvals from which the cash in lieu was provided. So if a restaurant or a business has provided cash in lieu and there's clearly inadequate parking in and around that development currently, or there are transport issues in and around that development, that is where we're looking to focus the expenditure. The community, particularly where the community has raised concerns, and we have the data to back that up through our record systems, through reports to rangers, etc., that there are concerns. That's where our focus is currently. That's not to say that we can't and we shouldn't consider resilience of businesses during the recovery of COVID-19. That's a very valid issue, provided it relates to the business in which the cash in lieu funds were provided from. There are some complications with this project because of the payment plans that a lot of the businesses are on. And so in a lot of cases, we haven't received all of the funds from the businesses yet. And so attempting to provide transport infrastructure around that business to support that business is difficult and is complex. The auditing process is complex because we haven't received all the funds yet. And so taking that amount of funds out of the reserve is just quite a complex process that we need to work through still with finance. So we're developing that process up as we speak, and hopefully in the coming weeks we'll be able to present a list of projects for next financial year.
Can I just ask, thank you, I really appreciate that information. Can I just clarify, the purpose of developing this plan at this time and presenting to this committee, is that because the drivers were, my understanding was that at one of our first town team roundtables, there was a discussion around, improving infrastructure within some of our town centres that may both benefit the broader Vincent community and town centre visitors, pedestrians, cyclists and people that need to drive and park to our town centres, but also may benefit businesses through the COVID recovery process. So I just want to confirm whether that was perhaps the genesis of the development of this plan, or whether this plan is something that has been in the works for a period of time and perhaps is more aligned with the, the imminent implementation of the draft, integrated transport plan.
Yes, through Mayor Cole, both of those things. So this plan has been in train for a long period of time, and we've been auditing each and every payment that we've received, as well as each and every cash in lieu of parking condition that's been applied, as well as all the expenditure that we've carried out in the past. And we've been working on that for a number of years through that audit trail. When the state of emergency was applied and we went through our response and recovery strategy planning, it was obvious that there was an opportunity to fast track that work for completion prior to the integrated transport plan being in place, which was the original time frame for that work. And so we've moved that forward to try and do exactly what you've described, which is improve the transport infrastructure in the town centres as soon as possible and help to support the economy through capital works next financial year. So that's the basis for how we've ended up with this report. It's really an update on where we are, and I think we're making good progress at this point to have it finalised in the next few weeks.
Okay, thank you. I think that will satisfy me. And so when you talked about, just one more question, just in terms of the criteria that's been developed, is that, so you've talked about that being sort of at quite a detailed level in relation to perhaps almost each development, but the overarching criteria that's being utilised is essentially alignment with the strategic community plan and other City of Vincent policies, rather than a specific set of objectives that would relate to each project.
That's correct. It's a combination of both. So we need to take into consideration the reason the money was collected in the first place. So the cash in lieu was paid by a particular business because they didn't have adequate parking on site or in the surrounding area, and what are the solutions to those issues that are set out in the city's strategic planning documents, and that would be where we would recommend the funds be spent on a strategic solution to that localised issue, if you like. Now, the great thing about the cash in lieu reserve that we have is that we've received cash in lieu payments from a number of businesses, say, in the Leederville Town Centre. So there are a solution to access to and from Leederville Town Centre would, from a strategic sense, would address the issues that all of those businesses that have paid cash in lieu face. So that's the idea behind it. I think it would certainly be worthwhile considering the business resilience and recovery, how best to maximise that given the current circumstances as well. So we will add that into the criteria we're developing and have that discussion with Council as part of the budget process.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Cole. I'm ready for...
I'm just trying to do that space bar trick, but sometimes it doesn't work. So that is taking some time, but thank you. Careful.
Just to follow on from some of those questions, particularly in relation to the timing, as my understanding was that this as you've just discussed, that this was fast-tracked due to trying to support the businesses with recovery in the current situation. I'm quite mindful of the fact that we're talking about capital works that may in themselves be to the detriment of businesses in the short term. And I'm just wondering how that is going to, I guess, be factored into timelines, because if we're, closing roads and using up parking bays to conduct capital works in this period of time, that could actually have the reverse effect short term.
Yes, through Mayor Cole, I would not anticipate that the scale of the works that comes out of this are so significant that it would be disruptive to the businesses, not significantly anyway, and that anything that was proposed would hopefully largely come from the businesses and be supported by those businesses. So that's the focus. It's certainly not a good idea, I don't think, either, to propose works that are going to be disruptive at this time.
Thank you. And you touched on it earlier. I had a question around the figures, the 1.9 million. Is that is money that we currently hold that has already been paid, or does that take into account expected payments through payment plans?
And through Mayor Cole, that's the money we currently hold. So there is more money to be paid over the years, noting that all the payment plans are optional at this stage, payments during the state of emergency.
That was my next question, is that are we forecasting what might, in the next 6 to 12 months, what else might come in, but noting that actually that might not be that much given the current circumstances?
Yes, through Mayor Cole, we haven't assumed we'll receive anything over the next 6 months, so these numbers are just based on the current reserves.
And just a final question. I appreciate that these funds are broken down by locality, and I think that will be a really helpful tool in determining how to set the action. I had a question around the whole city figure and how that's been arrived at. Where does that come from?
Yes, through Mayor Cole, that relates to funds that we haven't yet completed the audit of. So we have the audit information for the vast majority of those funds now. So we're just following that audit trail, and then we will allocate that to the locality, and we'll also have the exact location from which that cash in lieu payment, what development that cash in lieu payment relates to. So we'll be able to
anticipate that ultimately everything will have been allocated to one of the suburbs listed.
Yes, through Mayor Cole, that's the advice I've received, that we have an audit trail now for every payment, which is pretty incredible given we were receiving payments of $10 here and $30 there over the course of decades. So,
thank you. Yes, I'm happy to support and looking forward to more detail that we'll see in the coming weeks about what projects we might be able to manage at this stage.
Thank you, councillors. I think the message from the councillors of the committee is that we would like to see projects come forward for 2021 from this reserve. So I'd be keen to see that progress, and also just wondered whether cash in lieu for car parking can apply for pedestrian infrastructure such as signalised crossings.
Yes, through Mayor Cole, it can.
Okay, well that would be something that could be welcomed in town centres, etc. So that would be fantastic to include that in the considerations too. All right, no further comments from me, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour? I declare it carried. That concludes business arising, which leaves for the meeting item 8, announcements by the presiding member. I was going to talk about leaders of Village Square, but I feel I've covered that off in the first item of business this evening. So I'll go to item 9, general business. Any items to raise, councillors? No? Okay. We have no confidential items this evening, so that leaves our next meeting, which is Tuesday the 2nd of June 2020, so far on the agenda we have our weekly update and another finance assistance recommendation for East Perth Football Club, but other items may come forward in the meantime. So I'll conclude and close the meeting at 6:38 p.m. and thank you very much all for your participation. But I see the manager is indicating that she wishes to speak.
Through you, Mayor Cole, we were wondering whether we'd be transitioning to fortnightly meetings soon. Is that something the committee would like to consider?
I think we can talk about it, but I'm not sure we can make that decision right now as we're closing the meeting. I think it probably really comes from discussion, which I'm happy to take up with the CEO, about administration's feelings about the how we're going to transition through phase 3 and 4 of the roadmap, what sort of body of work we have ahead of us at the moment. We're also providing briefings on the budget, so perhaps that's something that I can take offline with the CEO and discuss with the council members, and then we could discuss that at the coming meetings. But I think at the moment this week was probably less hectic than last week, but we have more restrictions being eased soon, and as we know, we're a major implementer and it does have quite significant impact. So happy to discuss it, but I'm not sure that we can have an answer on that right here and right now. Okay, so I'll close the meeting at 6:39 p.m. Thanks, everybody.